Hi, good morning. Thank you for joining us for our 2021 annual meeting for Parents for Public Schools Hawaii. Thank you for those of you who are joining us live on our Facebook page. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, but hold tight and we'll be right back. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our annual meeting for Parents for Public Schools Hawaii. If you haven't already done so, if you're joining us on our Zoom call, if you can write down or type in the chat box where you're joining us from. We just want to know if you're joining us from our island of Oahu or another island. If you can just put that in there. If you're joining us on Facebook, if you can add that in the comments section. And we'll be starting very shortly. Thanks again for being here. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We are just waiting a few minutes so we can have all of our attendees join us for this meeting. We'll start very shortly. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our 2021 Parents for Public Schools of Hawaii annual meeting. This is the second year that we have held this meeting in a virtual format, and we are looking forward to an in-person meeting next year. One great thing about having a virtual meeting is that people are able to join us from across the state. It is great to see representation from different areas. My name is Wendy Nakasoni Kalani, and I am the president of Parents for Public Schools of Hawaii, and also the newest member of the board. I am a proud mom of one daughter who is in her freshman year at a public high school in Central Oahu. Professionally, after I graduated from college, I taught at Olomana School in the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility. Now I work for the Department of Defense as an Army School Liaison Officer, supporting Army families as they move to and from Hawaii. And I work closely with the schools in the Central District of Oahu. Well, to say that this past year was unusual may be an understatement. At times, many of us were frustrated, scared, angry, lonely, and confused. I mean, with all that pivoting, I didn't know whether I was coming or going. Yet, for some, it was a period of learning and opportunity, quality time spent with family, picking up a new hobby, or dreadfully, spending way too much money on online shopping. I mean, how many of us got sucked into the craze and bought an air fryer? As parents, we may have seen our children struggle with academics and lack of social and peer interactions. We saw kindergartners begin their educational careers behind the computer screen, and high school seniors received their well-earned diplomas via drive-by ceremony. As parents, we became teachers, counselors, school administrators, and tech coordinators. Truly, this past year and a half has been unprecedented. Now, as parents and caregivers, educators, community members, and supporters of public education, we are here today to be a part of the way forward, to bring hope, encouragement, support, and to lead our keiki into a brighter future. So on behalf of the Board of Parents for Public Schools of Hawaii, thank you, thank you, thank you for spending this time with us this morning. Next slide. As we get started, it's important that we create a safe space here for everyone. We will conduct this meeting with aloha at all times and encourage thought-provoking insight, input, and experiences. We will have only positive interactions this morning and will treat each other with respect and kindness. Please use the Q&A feature or comments area on Facebook to ask questions throughout the meeting. Questions will be queued and appropriately responded to. General comments may be posted in the chat feature or comment section on Facebook. Lastly, this meeting is being recorded and will be available for future viewing on our website, ppshi.org. Next slide, please. We will start off the meeting with information about PPS Hawaii, and my colleagues will share about our important initiatives that we prioritize this year. We are honored to have our guest speaker, Hawaii Department of Education Interim Superintendent Keith Hayashi here with us today to provide us with information and updates. Thank you, Interim Superintendent Hayashi. Additionally, it wouldn't be an impactful meeting if we didn't hear from our youth. We will hear from our youth guest speakers, Misa Layne and Rojelle Bohol from the Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council to share about the council's youth anti-vaping campaign. If you have your children with you and feel that this topic is appropriate and important for them to be aware of, we welcome them to listen to this presentation. Thank you, Misa and Rojelle, for joining us today. We will then host a talk story session from 11 to 11:30 to hear from you, your hopes, concerns, and ideas for the way ahead. Although we know that there were challenges this past year, we also know that there were accomplishments and teachers and schools who were doing amazing things. And we want to hear about that too. Next slide, please. The board members. This is an amazingly dedicated group with tons of experience, expertise, and passion. They are committed to excellence in public education and work hard to increase family and community engagement and increase educational opportunities for parents, families, and children. Most of them are here today, and they will share a little bit about themselves throughout today's meeting. Next slide. Parents for Public Schools of Hawaii emerged from the Furlough Friday crisis of 2009. Who remembers that? It was a difficult time when public schools were closed for 17 days in an attempt to cover the state's budget shortfall. It was at that moment in time that a group of parents and community members realized that family voices had been left out of the conversation about public education. Since then, we have been committed to listening to families and communicate with the Board of Education and lawmakers about issues like teacher pay and teacher support, effective family communication, family involvement in decision-making, and digital equity. We submit op-eds and testimony and conduct talk story sessions, focus groups, interviews, and PSAs. Today, we have more than 1,000 members and always encourage others to join us in this statewide movement to improve public education for the children of Hawaii. Next slide, please. We are one of 12 chapters of the National Parent for Public Schools nonprofit organization, which is based out of Mississippi. For 10 years, we have been aligned with the national organizations focused on educating, engaging, and mobilizing parents of public school students. Next slide, please. Our mission is to engage parents, students, and community members in supporting enriched and quality public education through effective communication and providing a greater awareness of educational policies and practices. I was a member of PPS Hawaii before I became a board member. And as a member, I appreciated the information that I received as it empowered me to get more involved in my daughter's education. And this is so important. PPS Hawaii encourages community involvement in education and decision-making. We are not saying that we know what's best for all students, but we do want to work together with the Hawaii DOE and community organizations. We want to have a voice and help to improve student achievement and promote school support and advocate for accurate media representation of public education. Next slide, please. As an organization, we value your voices and are committed to supporting family and community engagement. I'd like to now ask my colleagues to share about our initiatives. Deborah.
Aloha. My name is Deborah Bond-Upson, and I was born into a family dedicated to public education. Both of my parents served on boards of education, and they sent us door to door to get funding for schools. We've always seen public education as the most hopeful way to build toward peace for all of us and self-realization for each of us. 11 years ago, I moved to Oahu, and I brought my career working to build learning and teaching solutions here. I have done much of it by remote and much of it in person here. I have 4 children who went through public schools in Hawaii, and recently I became the foster mother to 3 wonderful students, foster students in public schools. Could I see the next slide, please? At Parents for Public Schools, we've been very interested in surveying and listening and hearing what our members and what all the parents we can find, the families we can find, feel about how education is going and what they need. As COVID hit, we felt after our first couple of surveys, which we shared and were helpful to many people in families and in education circles to see what families were feeling, but we felt we should go deeper and not just try to get objective data in questions. Instead, we decided to start hosting talk stories. And so we had several different meetings and parents joined us from all over the state. We were very pleased to have lots of participation from the other islands. And we found that many parents were delighted that they were going to be delighted that children would finally be able to go to school as we moved out of the COVID period, as we moved into a safer period where vaccinations and masks were there and protocols were developed. There was gratitude for how hard administrators and teachers have worked through this entire period. There was an understanding that this is hard for the DOE, especially the leadership, with the leadership change in this crisis. And there was hope that there is a plan. There was a desire to understand the safety protocols, but there was concern at inconsistent safety protocols, lack of social distancing at lunch, cohorts not working, worry that children will miss more school with in-person than distance learning because of quarantines, discomfort being told to decide and stick with one learning approach given an uncertain future. And some students learned more and had less stress with distance learning. Many students were stressed with worry about getting COVID and bringing it home, and children were afraid to take their masks off at lunch. Next slide, please. These comments are all coming from our talk stories that happened in September, and we're all noticing changes as we move forward with greater vaccination and understanding of mask wearing. But these talk stories continue to surface negative concerns as well that was important for us to communicate. And we did share what we were learning with the superintendent and with many other groups within the education sphere. Many parents told us they were keeping kids home out of fear of possible illness. We were concerned that the Hawaii DOE said that only 1% to 3% wanted distance learning, but parents who were joining our talk stories said they were not asked. This pointed, we think, to problems still in adequate communication between parents and the district. Parents felt they needed easier COVID testing and better contact tracing. And a concern was spoken for the lack of special education services, especially important in this COVID time. There was a concern about crowds and concern that emerging monies might not be spent on health and safety protocols, but might be spent to fill budget gaps due to legislative cuts in the budget to the DOE. Concern that inconsistent distance learning offerings by schools made it unfair for students in one school versus another. And there was some anger at the lack of learning options and flexibility, and anger that a commitment was made to in-person learning without enough of a backup plan. People noted that in Honolulu at that time, gatherings of 10 inside and 25 outside were the limits, but in school, classes of over 20 happened, and at lunch there were many more. Next slide. So given the risks that were growing at that point and the reports of inconsistent health protocols and pleas from families for options, we urge the Hawaii DOE to provide consistent, safe conditions for students and teachers, to spend emergency funds to ensure safety, meet safety protocols and contact tracing needs, and to deliver options to Hawaii families, in-person, hybrid, and full distance learning, to negotiate teacher work agreements to reflect current needs and be sure that teachers are able to do the best thing for them to do for the students. And very importantly, to plan for any eventuality. Even though as we've gone through this period, things have changed and feelings today might be different than they were in September. One consistent continuing concern is that we have plans for any eventuality, seeing that this COVID could hit the way it did, that we develop effective integrated systems for teaching and learning, for communications, and for district operations. And we'll be talking about many of these things in the talk story after this session today for any of you who might join. We'd love to hear what you're feeling now about how things are now and what you hope for the future. And now I'd like to introduce Heather Moselle, who is leading our school community council effort. Heather, take it over.
Thanks a lot, Deborah. Appreciate you introducing me there. So my name is Heather Moselle, and I have two kiddos in public school here in Hawaii. I have a first grader and a fourth grader. And I got involved with PPS Hawaii amid the scramble that was distance learning and figuring out how to adapt amid the pandemic. And so this has been a really supportive organization for me personally. And it's a privilege to be able to serve on the board. So the other initiative I want to talk to you about is PPS Hawaii kickstarting the School Community Council's talk story, which is kind of birthed out of the COVID talk stories that Deborah was leading. So the School Community Council, which I'll refer to as SCC from now on, the SCC talk stories were created with support from the Department of Education's Community Engagement Branch, and the SCC Talk Story is a webinar series with 4 parts. So the infographics that are used in this series were developed by PPS Hawaii to educate our community about what SCCs are, what they can do, who can get involved, and how they can get involved. So this 4-session initiative, the first 2 were held earlier this fall, and our final talk story will be on December 13th at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So you can look for the link to that one on our website or in our newsletter. So we'll talk about these infographics. Let's learn some about SCC. So what is your school community council? This is the first infographic that we've used in this series, and SCCs are a way for local communities to have a voice and work together to make decisions at every public school in Hawaii. So the meetings are open to the public. So it's not just for parents or educators, they're open to community members, and the agenda includes time for public input. Next slide. Who are SCC members? So community representatives are what are called primary stakeholders. So a lot of times at the bottom of the agenda, it'll say stakeholder input, and that's who they're talking about. So parents, students, community members, and school employees as well. So you'll have the principal at the school community council meeting, as well as teachers, staff, and classified staff. Next slide. So what's going on in the SCC meetings? So a wide range of topics are covered, and these meetings are held regularly throughout the school year. They give a voice, like we've talked about earlier, to the people who are around the students. So that's families and community members. And it's a place to share concerns as well as ideas for how the school can improve. So one of the many roles of the SCC is to check out the academic and financial plans, and that's usually presented by the principal, and then the principal can get feedback from the school community council members on what their thoughts are about the academic and financial planning, how well it's working, and how to improve it for the future. This is important because research shows that when a school plan to improve the academic achievement for students, when it gets more support from the people who helped to create it, that's more investment in that plan. Next slide. So what happens in these meetings? Again, those common agenda items, that's assessment of school level policies. So what's working, what's not working, the rules that are working in the school, and the rules that could be approved or adjusted. Waivers and exceptions for that school year. So thinking financing, assessment, and a principal evaluation. So you get to say, this is how we think the principal's doing, and then you evaluate the SCC. As a member of the school community council, there's a self-evaluation survey. So you kind of have a voice there to say, I don't really think this is functioning well, or here's the way that I think it's working really well at our school. Next slide. So how can you get involved? How to get involved with your school community council. You plan to attend the next meeting at your local public school. So if you're not just, if you're not a parent, it doesn't mean that you can't get involved. You can go to the next SCC meeting at the school that's in your geographic area, and you'll find notifications of the meetings and agendas on the school's website. Or you can see those in the school office. They should be posted at least 6 days before the meeting's going to take place. But ideally we could get those on there a little further in advance to give people time to plan and hopefully get some more attendance in those meetings. You can also look for the meeting announcements in take-home folders, school emails, or if you're not seeing any of that for your local school, you could directly ask the principal, hey, where is our SCC meeting being held? Is it virtual, in person? How can I get involved? Next slide. So who can get involved? Again, parents, community members, students. If there are open positions in the school community council, those are elected positions. So if you show up to those meetings and they need that position filled, you can get involved in that way by volunteering and hopefully getting elected and having a voice in your school community council. So when communities and families participate in numerous ways in kids' education, including that decision-making like the academic and financial planning, the children and the school are more successful, right? Because you're getting that stakeholder buy-in from our community. So I want to say thank you to all who have attended and shared their thoughts and experiences with SCCs at our previous sessions. I see somebody here today, hi Tony, who attended. You know, the information you shared at the Talk Stories is being used to inform how the DOE can improve SCCs across the island. So the information doesn't just end at that Talk Story. We're really gathering that and using that to inform how we can improve. Our final Talk Story will be December 13th from 6 to 7:30. So look for the link to that to excuse me, to register on our website or in our newsletter. And we hope to see you there. I'll hand it over to Susan Wood, who has been instrumental in facilitating the SCC Talk Story sessions, in addition to holding parent engagement program workshops, which she'll share about now. Thanks.
Sorry, good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Wood and I'm from Hawaii Island. I have two young adults who went through the public school system and graduated. One who has special needs. So I've been very involved in the Department of Education for many years in advocacy around special education. And I came into Parents of Public Schools through their parent engagement program. And I'm still here now as one of two vice presidents on the board. One of our initiatives is the parent engagement program. And we offer a series of workshops for families that provide knowledge and skills in leadership, development, education, and information. We've initially rolled it out in several schools across the state. And then the pandemic hit. So we had to pivot and we've been working on a virtual platform and offering some of these workshops virtually. We just finished one in late about learning styles in late October. We have two upcoming workshops, as you can see on the screen, one November 30th, 5 to 7 p.m. about barriers to learning and learning supports at home. And then our last session for 2021 is scheduled for December 15th, Parent Engagement and Leadership and Advocacy. You can find the registration again on our Facebook page. And, you know, we try to get it out through numerous networks across the state. So please, families, sign up for our workshops. We would love to have you there. Again, aloha, thank you for sharing your morning with us. And I am going to turn it over to Cash regarding another initiative we have, our transition nights.
Aloha, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I apologize, it's a little windy outside my window, so I apologize for the noise. My name is Kashmira Reed, and I'm a proud alumna of Ka'ahumanu Elementary, Washington Intermediate, and McKinley High School. And I have 2 children who attended both public and private schools in Hawaii. And I'm on the board because I really believe that an excellent public education system is both a right and a privilege, and that we can all share in helping our keiki reaching their highest potential. And so today I'm going to just speak to you briefly about our transition nights. It's actually one of our oldest program offerings that we provided to parents. What we realized was that many times in 5th or 6th grade, that was a jumping off point for folks leaving public school and attending private school, or really needing options about which public middle school they want to send their child to. And so we realized that parents needed real-time information to make those important decisions. And we partnered with middle schools, intermediate schools, to create a custom transition night. And we also took the opportunity to work with the feeder elementary schools to let their parents in 5th or 6th grade know about the events. And it worked out really well. One of the most popular aspects of this program was a presentation by an ed psych professor on brain development, which really provided a what to expect from my child as they transition from elementary school to adolescence. And although we had to pause our in-person events in 2021, we were able to do some hybrid events, which were well attended. And some virtual events, which were well attended. And we hope that by next spring, we will be able to get these back online. And we ask that if you're not a member yet, please sign up to be a member so that you receive our emails, or follow us on social media, or go to our website. And we'll have all of the event information there as these events are planned. And if you know anyone in that situation who is in elementary school and looking for that next step, please let them know about the programs as well. Thank you so much. And Chelsea, thank you. And so we really want to thank you for being here, and we want to thank Interim Superintendent Keith Hayashi for sharing his time with us this morning. It's really my pleasure to introduce him. And Mr. Hayashi has been serving in his appointed role for about 3 months. His 32-year career with the department spans the school, complex area, and state level. Most recently, he served as Waipahu High School's principal since 2009, a position for which he has received numerous awards. He has served the DOE in many capacities, including as an elementary school teacher, district resource teacher, complex area superintendent, interim deputy state superintendent, and interim state superintendent once before in 2017. Thank you so much for joining us today, Interim Superintendent Hayashi. We're looking forward to your update. And just as a reminder for our attendees, we're going to hold our Q&A until after Mr. Hayashi's presentation. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. And thank you all very much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity. I'd like to first thank all of our parents for supporting our schools and helping to keep our schools open. As a public school graduate myself and a parent of a public school graduate, I appreciate your efforts in supporting our schools and our students. And thank you all very much for all that you've done to help keep our schools open. We know the importance and benefits of in-person learning. And as I've been visiting schools across our state, I was just in Waiakea and Hilo on the Big Island yesterday, and I'm seeing and hearing from students who tell me how much they love being back in school and how challenging it was when our schools were forced to close and everyone was in lockdown. Students in all grade levels are saying they appreciate being able to engage with their teachers, with their friends and classmates, and everyone else in school. At school is where they receive not only instruction, but access to mental health services, healthy meals, socialization with their teachers and peers, after-school programming, and extracurricular activities. I'm also hearing from teachers, school administrators, and staff who are happy to be back with their students and enjoy having opportunities to engage. Our schools and the entire Department of Education is working so hard and every single day to ensure our schools can continue to remain open and to serve our communities. We can't do this on our own. It takes parents and communities working with us to continue to prioritize education. Next slide, please. Looking back on the past 3 months, I'm proud that we're able to fully reopen and start our new school year with a focus on in-person learning. As schools prepare to reopen, we came up with a framework to help set priorities for our students. 3 for students, 1 for staff, and 1 for our system. For the upcoming school year, we call this 3-1-1. For student priorities, the goal was to be able to get a pulse on where our students are, establish a baseline, and from there, design the appropriate responses and interventions to support our students. To ensure we address our students' needs, the 3 priorities for students are attendance. Are our students showing up? Are they in school? And if they're not, we need to find them and get them into school and engage them. Academics, how are students performing? We needed to gain a better understanding of where our students were and the challenges they're facing. Learning loss continues to be a concern, so knowing where our students are will definitely be important to determine the supports necessary to get them where they need to be. And social and emotional learning. How are our students doing socially and emotionally? After spending more than a year away from school, away from their network of friends, and away from trusted adults and mentors on our campuses, we need to address the vulnerability of our students and provide needed services and support to ensure student success. In order for this important work to be sustainable, we need to support and care for the well-being of our staff. This is a priority area for our employees. Another priority area we set at the beginning of the school year is to ensure the safe return of our entire public school system. With the Delta surge right around when school started, this priority played a prominent role in daily operations. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide speaks to what we're doing to manage in-person learning. To ensure a safe return for all, the department regularly communicates with the Department of Health to stay up to date with the latest information and COVID-19 prevention strategies. We rely on DOH as the authority on health-related matters. As the Department of Health guidance is updated, we update our COVID-19 health and safety guidance for the field. This document is available on our website as a reference for our schools, employees, and communities. The guidance is available on our website and also reinforced to various communications, newsletters, parent letters, and social media campaigns. In addition to the guidance, we've created flyers and visuals to help schools and families understand how close contacts are determined in school settings and what the quarantine requirements are for the different scenarios. We continue to practice the core mitigation strategies, including promoting vaccines, mask wearing, hand hygiene, and staying home when sick. In addition to hosting school-based vaccination clinics, we're collaborating with DOH and local health service providers to offer testing opportunities at schools, especially schools identified as being in high-risk areas. While schools continue to have cases, the health and safety practices that our schools implement are proving to be effective at quickly identifying cases and preventing spread. Next slide, please. Hopefully these images look familiar to you. Let's see if we can, next slide. I think we're on slide 4.
I'm sorry, sir. We are having some technical difficulties.
Oh,
You
it's
will
okay.
bear with us.
No problem.
Sorry.
I'm good. I can wait. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, slide 4. Hopefully these images, like I said, hopefully these images look familiar. In August, we launched the data dashboard on our website to show where cases are happening in our schools. We publish daily COVID case counts by school or office to provide accurate and timely information to schools, staff, families, and the public. Family, staff, and community can see for themselves that our campuses are safe spaces. Our schools are not amplifiers of COVID. The core essential strategies have proven extremely effective in reducing the risk of exposure on our campuses. Schools continue to make the following notifications for all confirmed and probable cases. Immediate notification to individuals who may have come into close contact with the infected person about possible exposure while maintaining confidentiality in accordance with state and federal law. Notification to staff and parents or guardians about the possible exposures and Hawaii DOE activities to contain the spread of infection. The dashboard can be accessed from our homepage at hawaiipublicschools.org. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide provides an update on our employee vaccination status. Increasing vaccination rates within our communities continues to be one of the best ways we can protect ourselves and those around us against COVID. I'm proud that our employees are doing their part to contribute to the health and safety of our students and school communities. Nearly 9 out of every 10 of our salaried employees, or 89%, are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. For teachers, that rate is slightly higher at 92%. You'll recall the department imposed a requirement beginning August 30th that all employees be tested once a week for COVID-19 to comply with Governor David Ige's August 5th emergency proclamation and to provide a safe school and work environment for students and staff. It's important to distinguish that the department is implementing a testing requirement, not a vaccination mandate. If an employee certifies and provides proof of vaccination, the employee is not subject to the weekly testing requirement. We continue to host vaccination clinics at our schools for eligible students and interested families and employees. In partnership with the Department of Health and health service providers, we've hosted more than 150 DOE school-based clinics statewide since May, when a vaccine was approved for adolescents 12 and older. Now that the vaccine is approved for younger children from 5 to 11, about 100 of our schools have registered to host a clinic. The first school-based clinic for 5 to 11-year-olds is scheduled for Monday. Although highly encouraged, COVID vaccinations are not mandatory for students to attend school. Next slide, please. Thank you. When we talk about the importance of in-person learning, we know there are very real impacts to not being in school. Everyone across the country braced for the impacts, knowing that achievement wouldn't be the same. At our most recent Board of Education meeting, we shared our latest Strive High performance results for schools. Strive High includes key indicators around test results, chronic absenteeism rates, graduation, and college going rates. As explained on the slide, last school year, we administered a shortened version of the statewide assessment that ensures compatibility with prior year results. We used a skip year growth methodology because no test was given in school year 1920. Next slide, please. On average, 88% of our students were learning in blended or virtual learning environments last school year when these performance results were captured. The Strive High results show that for last school year, our overall statewide academic proficiency in English and language arts, math, and science all decreased. The pandemic negatively impacted participation and proficiency across all content areas and subgroups. All content areas were impacted by the pandemic. There were some bright spots. Graduation rate increased for the third straight year to 86%. We saw a steady increase in students completing a career and technical education program. Third and eighth grade literacy, students reading near, at, or above grade level increased. But the overall results emphasized the importance of having students back in the classroom for in-person learning and will help inform our plans for targeted supports and resources. Hawaii is not unique to this. National reports have shared that generally, students testing in 2021 scored lower in math than in reading, and students of color and low-income students were disproportionately impacted. Specifically, states like Ohio, Georgia, Tennessee, and Colorado that have published assessments information showed a decrease in student performance, that growth with disadvantaged students and certain subgroups were disproportionately impacted, and there were an increase in absences. Fortunately, the department has benefited from federal funding through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, known as ESSER, to support reopening schools and to address pandemic impacts and including learning loss. We are working diligently with the Board of Education on an educational plan that details how we will use these federal funds to carry out this purpose. We'll be soliciting input and feedback from stakeholders, including parents like yourselves. Please stay tuned for details on how you can participate and engage. The last slide, please. In closing, our schools have done a great job in welcoming our students back to our campuses and continue to focus on accelerating learning to help our students make up for lost instructional time. Again, prioritizing in-person learning and ensuring our schools are safe will take all of us working together. Our students depend on us, and we can't let them down. Thank you very much for all of your continued support in working together with our schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hayashi. We really appreciate that presentation. And we are starting to get some questions that Chelsea is putting into our Q&A that we received in advance. I think we also have one that has come through Facebook. So the first question that Rita asks, schools and communities are getting back to a more normal world. There are long-lasting effects of the pandemic, loss of learning, changes in peer interaction, much of what you described to us with the reporting. And so her question is, what will the DOE do to help individual students to build back better social emotional skills, and how to work effectively with different children who may have been lost or truncated because of the pandemic?
So our schools have, as we've implemented our 3-1-1, looking at attendance, looking at the data that has come out related to where students are academically and where students are socio-emotionally. Each community is very different. And so our schools are working together with teachers and identifying ways to best address those specific needs related to their communities. Schools have created those plans that have, and in working very closely with their complex area superintendents to address their community needs, looking at the K-12 needs within each individual school complex, and have submitted requests for supports leveraging ESSER funds to address those unique needs within their communities and those students. Schools also have their school-based funding, and they've also already begun to implement those strategies at the school level. So, please look forward to getting more information from your schools related to these efforts.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And before I go on to the next question, I did want to share a compliment that someone posted. Roya says, wow, that's an excellent presentation. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. I really need to emphasize that it is the collective work of everyone that we're able to share what we're doing. It's working with our schools, with our school leaders, administrators, teachers, complex area and state office personnel. One of the things that I've learned in this position is that how everyone is so very committed to ensuring our students are back, and that also includes all of you parents, our philanthropy partners, as well as our business and industry and our governmental leaders. So the credit goes out to everyone. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. And the next question also from Rita is, will teachers have training, more training to provide social emotional support around social emotional support?
Yes, we are working with our schools and our complex area superintendents to identify those needs that schools are asking for supports in. As we all know, schools have focused on different areas, and based on the needs of their school communities, I really believe that it's as those needs are very unique and may differ from complex area to complex area. It's important that the needs surface from the grassroots in terms of where those supports, professional development, strategies, most come from we're informed from that, from the schools and from the complex areas. So should schools and complex areas and area superintendents request a support, we definitely will be working closely with them to provide those things that they need for their students, to work in concert with them to support their schools.
Thanks so much. And this is somewhat related because we're talking about, teachers and their supports. So another question is, are you folks, is the DOE making any specific efforts around the substitute teacher shortage to address that? Are there initiatives, or could you speak to that, please?
Sure. Regarding substitute teachers, we have made, I believe we've made gains in over the last several years. However, COVID definitely has impacted our substitute teachers, and through our Office of Talent Management, we have adjusted requirements for substitutes, and so that we're able to hire as many substitutes as possible. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm thinking about it, our rates have improved, and I think we're at about 100, I want to say about 100 substitutes per day that we're short, which is actually, when we think about it, we have about 257 schools, I think. And so on the average, it's less than one school per day. We are still, though, making a very concerted effort to to increase our substitute pool. We've also reached out as a department to other organizations, the most recent being Unite Local 5. And so if these organizations have employees that meet those minimum requirements and are interested in substituting in our school system, we're making a very concerted effort to get these individuals in as quickly as possible. So if any of you know individuals who are looking to substitute, there's some major requirements for that though, right? As we know, it's not just the requirements of high school graduate and so forth, but you must love working with students. You have to have a passion for that. And flexibility is important too, because sometimes needs for substitutes come up that very morning, and so schools are looking and calling to see what substitutes are available. So a love for students and a passion to make a difference in the lives of children is very important. And also, I think being flexible. And so as a department, we're doing all we can to encourage committed individuals to apply to be substitutes with us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And our next question is from Emmy as well. And she says, she understands that a lot of the emphasis now has to be on remediation and really bringing back students to the benchmarks of pre-pandemic levels that you discussed in your presentation. And she's asking, what is also being done to ensure that above average students will be provided a challenging curriculum to keep them engaged?
That's a great question. And as I share about the importance of supporting our students who have exhibited learning loss, as a department is definitely focused on these students and helping to move them forward, both in school and out of school time. We have definitely not forgotten our students who continue to excel, and again, students are and communities are very different across our state. And we want to ensure that all of our students' needs are met, including those students who continue to do well and to engage them. That's definitely a priority. I just want everyone I just want to confidently say that we are not addressing one group of students at the expense of others. We want to raise everyone. We also want to focus on those students who are struggling, to be sure that we can catch them up, and at the same time continue to support those students who continue to do well in school. Our schools are definitely focused on supporting that effort in differentiating the kinds of instruction in our classrooms.
Thank you. Thanks so much. We have another question about teachers. This is a very stressful time for them. And are there any additional or special supports that you folks have implemented to provide for the teachers during this time?
We have, in looking at the many different challenges that everyone is facing related to the pandemic, we have looked at, for example, for one thing, for our teachers and for our counselors, looking at their evaluation system. And, definitely we have a very robust evaluation system for teachers, which is based on evidence, which is based on observation, which is based on a collaboration between teachers and school administrators. It's also, it takes time, to collect all of that data and that information. So with that, the department definitely recognized the challenges there. And so we have adjusted through working together with our union partners to modify and to for teachers who this year that are on cycle, which is, let's say, about 20% of them, because we categorize teachers that are in evaluation cycle by Social Security number. It's about 20% of our teachers. We're going to move their cycle to next school year, so they don't need to worry about doing the evaluation this year. Except for, but we do have some teachers that, probationary teachers and so forth, that may still need to exhibit and demonstrate certain levels of within the evaluation. But for the majority of our teachers, we've delayed the evaluation cycle and moved everyone, we kind of slid everyone over to next year. So hopefully that will be one thing that we will be able to support and provide the time that our teachers need. We've also in continuing working with our teachers and working together with their school principals and administrators, have also working to identify other kinds of supports that their schools may need, unique to their individual situations. And I just want to say too that our teachers work extremely hard in working in supporting our students, as well as our counselors and our librarians. I also want to not forget that within the school community, we also have our school administrators and principals and vice principals and athletic directors and our staff, our office personnel and custodians and educational assistants and security and everyone, cafeteria workers, that health aides, everyone pulls together in schools. And I think that is what makes our schools so inspiring in Hawaii. When we look at right, Nahopena'o, and those values that we want all of our employees to have and then to instill in our students, it's about all of us pulling together. And I really believe that's what makes education in Hawaii very unique. It's not by myself and I'm only thinking about me, but it's about how we work together, not only within school, but with community partners outside of school. So we are doing our best to support all of our employees in the many different challenges that this pandemic has posed to us.
Thank you so much. And we are getting a lot of questions, so we're going to kind of keep trying to get through these.
Okay.
Diane from Facebook, she's asking specifically about homeschool students, but I think I'm going to broaden that a bit and ask, is the DOE tracking the attrition of students from the public school systems who their families opted to homeschool them or maybe take them out to another school system? And specifically because due to the lack of distance learning options, are you folks tracking?
I believe we are through our data systems. I don't have those numbers for you though. I can definitely get that to you. I believe we are taking a look at the students who have exited our system, whether it be through homeschool requests or because of moving just to another state or transitioning to another school, whether it be another kind of a school in Hawaii. I'm really sorry, I don't have those specific numbers right now.
Well, that's fine. And I don't think anyone expected you to have the numbers off the top of your head, but maybe we can stay in touch after and then we can post it from our end for folks who attended and our audience. And one of the questions that we had, Mr. Hayashi, is,
yes,
we really appreciated the collateral and the information that you folks had to produce in a short amount of time because of all of the developments around COVID. But in general, we really are hearing that family engagement there's some areas of improvement. And I'm just wondering, now that you're in this new role, do you, having been, the principal level and this superintendent level, Do you have any ideas or any thoughts about how the two-way communication between the DOE and students and families could be improved? And it could be over time. It doesn't have to be immediately, but if you could share your thoughts on that, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. Family engagement and parent input is so important to the success of our schools. We rely on our schools and for family and parent contributions as our communications, as they are closest to their school communities, as I shared, and know them best. We have 257 public schools across our state, and in different areas, in different neighborhoods, in different communities, with many diverse strengths. From the department level, we continue to support our schools with communication efforts in many ways. Some examples are newsletters, through social media and through websites. Not only at the department level, but also at schools. Now more than ever, our schools and families have been working together in navigating this pandemic, which is wonderful that when we work together. Schools have been doing their best to keep families updated with rapidly changing guidelines, policies, and procedures as situations continue to evolve. I've been in schools. I've seen schools even having virtual meetings with their parents. Starting that to openly address questions or concerns. For example, before the start of the school year, with COVID screening testing in schools for vaccination clinics, there are some Q&A sessions. It's been a total collective effort to enforce COVID-19 mitigation strategies in schools, keeping students home when they're sick, which is really important. Following quarantine procedures and other health and safety procedures and protocols. This has been vital in keeping our schools open. So that as we'll continue, the pandemic has really posed challenges and has impacted, I think, our momentum that we were having pre-pandemic. And our schools and the department is definitely committed to taking lessons learned and really looking for ways to continue to engage our parents and our community. So again, a definite important area that we continue to look for strategies to increase on.
That's great to hear, and it is difficult because you have a very, very large statewide system, and as you said, there are all different communities and schools, but and we do understand that the pandemic impacted that momentum. And it's kind of interesting that it not only impacted the school individual child performance, but also system-wide performance. Mm-hmm. And so we look forward to working with you, as the pandemic hopefully recedes, yes, to continue to foster that parent engagement piece.
Most definitely, yes. Thank you.
And then the next question is, could you share briefly, we hear a lot about community schools, and I realize you probably have a whole separate presentation on that, but could you just share a little bit, like a nugget about community schools and whether you see that as a growing trend in Hawaii?
The community school models is something definitely that I need to learn more about, before I could speak to the pros and cons of the community school, specifically to the community school concept. In a broader sense, though, I'm definitely supportive of our schools being community centered. When I was at Waipahu, just kind of thinking back on some of my experiences, I understood firsthand how vital it was to have a close relationship with the community and the importance of community support. As I've kind of shared, it's everyone, and everyone comes together to support our schools and support, all of the efforts. So that's very important. We work extremely closely with community partners to ensure our programs and priorities are responsive and aligned to community needs. But the specific community school concept, I definitely need to learn more about before I would be able to speaking to its specific pros and cons.
No problem. Thank you so much. And
Okay.
Thanks for being open to just the community-based model in general in those terms. And so this question is from Tony. It's quite long. It is in the Q&A. It says, good morning. My question is as follows. I am a parent of a high school student, 9th grade. I am also a DOE employee, sub custodian. Currently, I am subbing at a charter school. So the question is there anyone following up with the schools to ensure that policies are being held and consistent throughout? The reason is that at least on the windward side of Oahu, there are different interpretations on what needs to be done and how to do it, and it varies from school to school.
I would be able to speak to our public schools, DOE public schools. If there are inconsistencies there, I would, that Tony is seeing, I would definitely, bring that up with the school principal. But as I'm understanding the question, it may be a inconsistency between the DOE public school and charter schools. The charter schools are come under the authority of their local school boards, and their charter school principal and the local school boards, their charter school boards, I'm sorry, as well as the charter school commission. So as with any whether it's charter school or DOE public school, I would really recommend that if there are inconsistencies, that those inconsistencies be shared with anyone wonderings, with the school principal, and there may be a reason why something is happening specifically to that example, but we would need to get a little more information to be able to address that. But definitely, I would recommend to Tony to check with their school principal at the charter school or at the DOE public school.
Okay, thank you. So we have some pretty complex questions here. I feel like this is a tough one, but we know that the COVID pandemic changed just about everything, and you haven't been there long, but sort of in your estimation in this short period, is there sort of like one or two top things where you feel like it's really changed the DOE system in this way, and or like pivoting toward a certain way? Like if the change hasn't come about yet, one or two just top of mind things that you think have had sort of the greatest impact in terms of the trajectory of the DOE system. Thank you.
Let's see, looking at the pandemic, it definitely forced a reactionary approach to teaching and learning remotely, with it coming so quickly. And, we admittedly, we were in crisis when the pandemic, initially hit us. I think as was everyone globally, the pandemic exposed our vulnerabilities and weak spots. For example, device and connectivity gaps for students, leveraging the full potential of educational technology strategies, food security. But we were fortunate to have committed educators, definitely, who rose to the challenge to do their best in a short amount of time to keep students learning. Looking ahead, we've taken lessons learned to move forward and to shore up our gap areas. If we're looking at one or two areas, definitely how might we continue to leverage the potential, continuing to leverage the potential of educational technology, I think is something that's really important. And again, it's something that our teachers and schools have, I think, done a great job with, and doing the best that they could in adjusting in a relatively short amount of time, but really quickly. I think the other thing that is connected to that is that educators, whether it's teachers in classrooms or schools, principals, really turn to each other and work together to communicate and to dialogue and to get ideas from each other on and to build ideas on how we can continue to support our students. And that's definitely one thing I think that moving forward, how can we continue to leverage the educational technology to support our students? And I think that is actually a very exciting discussion that we can have, despite the challenges of COVID. And how do we continue to prepare our students to be engaged, to be ready to enter the 21st century workforce, and how do we connect with the elementary, middle, and high school. And I was hearing earlier about how there are transition nights, right? That you focus on, and the transitions between elementary and middle school, which also is definitely important. So how might we continue to build on the successes that we've had and kind of explore other areas, and so that's one thing definitely is educational technology. And the other one was how I change our DOE system. Again, I think looking at, most importantly, our students, and how might we take a look at the data that continues to come in. How do we take that data, create strategies, working together with each other within schools and across schools to address the needs of our students, to help to accelerate their learning, to continue to track that and to monitor their progress, and for schools to make adjustments, right? And our system to make adjustments as we need to in supporting the needs of our students. So probably those are the big ones, looking at continuing to work together and continuing to monitor the progress of our students to ensure that we're helping to move them forward. I think one of the things that a misconception maybe is that, well, we've had a pandemic for 1 year or more, 2 years, or a period of time. So it'll take that period of time to catch students up, and I think research is showing across the country that it's not as easy as that. As students experience learning loss, I think, we really need to look at how we're going to do our best to continue to accelerate their learning, and working together, because we cannot do it alone. So I thank you all for your continued support too in that.
I think those were excellent, Mr. Hayashi, and I think they really resonate with this group and our board, especially the use of technology and continuing to track progress and using the data to create and implement the strategy. So thank you so much. We are pretty close, but we thank you for hanging in there with us and answering all these great questions. We do have a couple of more.
Yeah.
And one of them, this is the first one that talks about administrators. So Roya asks, how are you training administrators during this time? My friend is a teacher and has seen teachers leave her school due to bad management. Sorry. How are principals and VPs evaluated, trained, and supported?
Yeah, I as a recently former school principal at Waipahu High School, I can definitely, without a doubt, tell everyone and share with everyone that our school principals at all of our 257 schools are working extremely hard in keeping our schools open. There are many things, I think, that happen behind the scenes that people might not be aware of. I've known principals personally that even at the start of the pandemic, when everything was closed, principals were still on the job, and working and ensuring the security of their campus, staying up late, as does everyone, but really principals committed to supporting teachers, supporting students, working with each other, thinking outside of the box, thinking of strategies when we think about it, in a environment that no one has ever experienced, and when we think about something like that, and the importance of leading a school as a principal, together with their administrative team, together with their teachers and counselors, and working together with their staff. When we think about that, it's actually a very complex and a very daunting task. And I am so proud of our school administrators, whether it's our school principals, our vice principals, our athletic directors, our area superintendents that have taken leadership roles at schools. It was already challenging, in different ways, trying their best. And then in a COVID environment now, and it takes a lot. And I can tell you that, speaking from firsthand experience. So while we do continue to work, our area superintendents have really great communication with school principals and school principals with each other. We continue to look at different challenges and try to strategize ways to address those challenges, whether it be related to our staff, related to COVID, related to a myriad of things that can happen at a school. Within this environment, I just need to say it is definitely at the very, how do I say, to say it's challenging is, I think, an understatement. So, please continue as teachers, and staff to work with your school principals. The communication is open. Touch bases with them if there are concerns. Share it with them. And know though that they're all, each and every one of them, are very committed to supporting our schools, to supporting our students, to supporting our communities. And I am extremely proud to be together with them. So again, concerns come up, please share it with them. Communication is very important. But I cannot stress to you the dedication that they have to supporting each of our school communities.
Okay, thanks so much. We have one question that's also about principals and about testing in the schools. So are principals getting the support they need in staffing to offer surveillance testing at schools? What has the DOE done to provide this help?
Okay. So when we're looking at testing, again, that's something else. When we think about the challenges that principals face, and the responsibilities that have come in this COVID environment, and principals, for 12 and up, when we think about it, those principals were standing up vaccination clinics, and then working together with Department of Health, at that time, and then working together with to stand up testing sites, right? And to take a look at how might we support our students and our staff in testing. And schools and complex areas address that in different ways. Again, because our complexes are very different. Some schools are very close to each other. Some schools are actually by distance, they're very far apart within a complex. So those decisions were based on principals working together with their area superintendents. The supports that we're working together with Department of Health, with Hawaii Keiki, and with different agencies to see how we can work together to provide additional support for principals to support testing. Also being cognizant that testing itself, we want to be sure that we're able to, that the testing system that is able to accommodate the number of tests that we're doing. And when you think about it, we have, let's see, 165 1,000 students, I think, in the department. And the testing is there for students at schools, depending on the school. Now that we're also standing up about 100 vaccination sites, it's important that as many students we encourage as many students that can get vaccinated to take advantage of that. So we are working with schools to look at different options to help them with testing, and now with vaccinations, and working together with their area superintendents and principals. So there are talks in different in supporting schools in different capacities.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hayashi. We really appreciate it. And that has kind of brought us to our end of our time with you. We extend an invitation for you to stay with us if you're able to, but we know how busy you are. And we really appreciate that you took that time with us this morning. And coming up next, we'll be hearing from the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council members. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone too, and the parents for public schools for your support and supports of our schools and our systems and our students. So thank you very much. Mahalo.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. We are so delighted to have two folks with us this morning, Rojelle Bohol and Misa Layne. Rojelle is a senior attending the University of Hawaii at Manoa and is majoring in public health and sociology. She's an alumna of Kaimuki High School and has been involved with the Hawaii Public Health Institute Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council since 2020. She's passionate about helping others and hopes to work in the public health field in the future. Misa Layne is a senior at Radford High School and is planning on majoring in political science in college. She's passionate about solving health disparities and working for the well-being of Hawaii's youth. Welcome both.
Thank you so much for having us today. As Cash said, I'm Rojelle Bohol.
I'm Misa Layne, and we are members of the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council, a program of the Hawaii Public Health Institute.
So our youth council has been working to pass legislation to address the youth vaping epidemic for the past several years. We have come close for the past couple of years, but we have fallen short and really need your help. But let me first share a little about the problem we're facing. So while the rate of combustible cigarettes is at an all-time low, the problem we face is the youth use of e-cigarettes, which has skyrocketed. It nationally increased 135% between 2017 and 2019 alone. In 2019, which is the most recent data from Hawaii available, 18% of middle school students report having used e-cigarettes in the past 30 days, which is more than 3 times the national average. For high school students in the state, the rate was 31%, placing us as one of the top states for youth e-cigarette use. Research shows that groups are impacted more than others. Over 45% of female Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander high school students report having used e-cigarettes in the past 30 days, and 30% of Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander middle school students have done the same. And we know that e-cigarettes have many negative health impacts, particularly for youth. First, nicotine harms their brain. It impacts memory, attention, concentration, cognition, and impulse control. Also, those who use e-cigarettes are 56% more likely to have a heart attack and 30% more likely to suffer from a stroke than non-smokers. The aerosol in e-cigarette products have harmful chemicals which can cause lung disease, And lastly, people that use e-cigarettes are 55% more likely to suffer from depression or anxiety. Tobacco companies also have a proven sales strategy when it comes to planting seeds for future customers. These executives have gone on record to state that the base of their business is the high school student, which is why we really need to help our youths. They also know that 95% of smokers start before the age of 21. And this is just to emphasize more that we really need to prevent youth or stop them from using these products. Flavors also play a big part in youth use. Candy flavor tobacco products can lead to lifelong addiction to nicotine, with 8 of 10 youth that have ever tried an e-cigarette started with a flavored product. And 97% of current youth that vape use flavored products. And also with more than 15,500 mostly candy flavors, they are really not fooling anyone. There are countless examples of e-liquids that look like popular candy, and also flavors mask the harsh taste of tobacco, which makes it easier for youths to start and harder to quit. The tobacco industry also know that flavors means a whole lot more. They exploit our local foods and culture. As you can see in the slide, there are flavors such as Hawaiian sweet roll, Hawaiian pog, and there is also a flavor called Mauna Dew. And while these companies claim that they are not marketing to kids, their actions speak loudly and carry a different message.
And the problem is not just e-liquids, it's small cigarettes, smokeless tobacco, and menthol cigarettes too. 65% of kids who have ever tried cigars started with a flavored product. Menthol cigarettes, for example, have helped to addict generations of African Americans, Filipinos, and Native Hawaiians. They are by far the most popular type of cigarettes with these populations. 78% of Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders smoke menthol cigarettes. Menthol makes it easier to start and harder to quit. To make things even worse, Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders are more likely to die from lung cancer than most other groups. The medical community does not exactly know why, but the tobacco companies know about this health disparity and keep targeting Hawaii as a menthol market. Menthol is dangerous in e-liquids too. It increases cell damage and exposes users to up to 1,600 times as much polygon as smokers of menthol cigarettes. Polygon has been banned as a food additive by the FDA, but is still being used in e-liquids. To us, the solution is simple. Join the more than 200 other states, localities, and municipalities that have banned flavored tobacco products, and the cycle that hooks kids say no to all flavored tobacco in Hawaii. While the federal government has restricted the sale of some flavored e-liquid pods, it doesn't include menthol, and it still allows the sale of all flavored e-liquids sold in bottles and disposables. In Hawaii, refillable pods and disposable e-cigarettes are the most popular among youth, so ending the sale of all flavored products is essential. Ending the sale of flavored tobacco won't solve the youth vaping epidemic on its own, but it will help prevent new youth from starting. The Tobacco Control Act of 2009 eliminated flavors in combustible cigarettes except menthol, and declining youth rates followed, so we know it will help. To truly end the epidemic forever, however, we need to treat e-cigarettes like other tobacco products in Hawaii and require permitting and licensing. Tax e-cigarettes like other tobacco products and restrict online sales. One policy we know that does not work is penalizing youth who have become addicted through targeting in the industry. Let's have a quick look at each. So currently, for permitting, anyone can sell e-cigarettes making it difficult to enforce the Tobacco 21 laws. And similarly with licensing, in order to tax e-cigarettes and e-liquids, we need to know who is selling them. So it goes back to the permitting issue. Overall sales of e-cigarettes are sensitive to price changes. A 10% increase in price reduces sales of disposable e-cigarettes by approximately 12% and by about 19% for reusable e-cigarettes. The findings by the quote by Dr. Levinson are echoed by other public health leaders across the country. But let's hear in Dr. Levinson's own words. Don't believe the unfair to the poor claims. 2 systematic reviews of all studies on the subject found that lower income smokers reap the biggest share of health and financial benefits from cigarette price increases. The reason is simple. Lower income smokers are most likely to quit when cigarette prices rise sharply. A majority of smokers are from lower incomes, but this group as a whole will still pay a smaller total share of new tax revenues than smokers with more income. In fact, tobacco taxes are the most equitable strategy to reduce smoking. They narrow disparities more than any other tobacco fighting approach. With youth being even more sensitive to price changes, there is no reason to believe we will not see similar positive benefits from taxing e-cigarettes, which would raise the overall price. As you may know, e-cigarettes are just one click away for many youth. Hawaii schools have shared that students as young as 6th grade reported being able to buy e-cigarettes online with the debit card they can get at the corner store. We need to close this loophole. Combustible cigarettes can't be ordered online. Why should e-cigarettes? Last, youth purchase, use, or possession (PUP) laws are not an effective approach in reducing youth tobacco use and inappropriately shift the blame for underage tobacco use from the tobacco industry and retailers to young people. We need to help youth quit, not punish them for being addicted. The industry pushes PUP legislation as a solution to redirect blame away from their industry that makes billions of dollars addicting kids. We need to educate our lawmakers that it's counterproductive, and we need to keep the focus on regulating the industry and penalizing those that sell to youth, not punish the youth themselves. We need to also ask that some of the funds from taxing these products be used to fund programs for youth that want to help quit. So what can you do to help? Luckily, there are many ways you can help. Endorse our policy priorities by adding your organizations or endorsing as an individual. Educate your friends and family about the issue. Let your state representative and senator know you want to see action on this issue. Submit testimony during the legislative session and support for bills that end the sale of flavored tobacco and regulate e-cigarettes in the same way that other tobacco products are regulated, and oppose youth purchase, use, or possession (PUP) laws.
So you folks can definitely go to flavorshookkidshi.org for more information and to support us. I will be sending the link later in the chat. And these are our sources. And I will also just include the email, our emails, if you or anyone would like to contact us or have any questions or have questions on how to support us. And I will also include our form for endorsing as an individual, because we definitely need all the support we can get to combat this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rojelle and Misa. That was so informative, and just know that Parents for Public Schools Hawaii definitely endorses your efforts, and we look forward to working with you in the future. And now we have a couple of questions that are in the Q&A. So the first one is, and either of you can respond, but are there any stats on smokers at the elementary school level? I personally have witnessed 2 kids, one in 5th and one in 6th grade, smoking an e-cigarette on campus. I reported it to the principal, and the comment was that it was done as school ended and they were leaving the campus. The principal went on to say that she was aware of this, but the parents are allowing it, so she's not going to do anything about it.
So I personally don't know like if any stats are available, but we can definitely look into it. But I guess like, you know, like with the problem of like youth use, like we really need to just like advocate towards, you know, our students and towards our parents on like how this like youth use can like impact their bodies. And you know, some parents may use these products, but you know, as these kids, they are still developing and growing, so it can have a negative health impact, as we've mentioned in our presentation.
Thank you so much, Rojelle. And the second question is secondhand smoke from vaping dangerous? Because we've all heard about secondhand smoke from traditional tobacco products.
Yeah, so I believe it's dangerous, but definitely don't quote me on that. But I think I need to research more about it. But as we've mentioned, like the aerosol in these products can cause lung cancer. And I believe that if it's secondhand too, like the same chemicals and toxins in those can impact by secondhand inhaling of those chemicals. So I'll say yes, but we will do more research.
Thank you. That would be great. And anything you want to share with us, we'd be more than happy to post on our social channels or e-newsletters. We can provide some updates. So absolutely, if you want to send any information after you've done a little research, we'll be happy to share it broadly. And then the last question is, are there any resources that you both know about to help youth to stop vaping, or any tips for quitting vaping?
Regarding resources, Hi-Fi, we are always a resource. And like for parents who are like passionate about this issue as well, like we encourage all parents to endorse our policy priority as individuals and to possibly share it among other parents or people in their community who have children, because you know, a lot of things like start at the policy level, and like if we can't like regulate these products like other tobacco products, then you know, these products can get in the hands of youths more easily. And I know for sure like there are many different organizations nationally and locally that also have similar goals as Hi-Fi, as we do. And for tips on quitting vaping, I don't have any on hand right now, but we can also look into that. Thank you.
That would be great and appreciated. Thank you so much to both of you, Rojelle and Misa. You folks really did a great job and we learned a lot this morning. And now I'm going to turn it over back to Wendy so that she can start to conclude this portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rojelle and Misa, for creating a wider awareness of vaping and the dangers of tobacco use. As a mom of a teenager, I appreciate the information you shared and will help to be a part of this movement. Thank you for spending your morning with us. Before closing out this meeting, I would be remiss if I did not also introduce our other board members. Ernestine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ernestine Nmoto, and it's hard to follow that act, Wendy. Everything was great, very, very informative and helpful. And I guess I'd like to speak to any parents that are still hanging out there. Our board is active, as you can see, in many initiatives and want to solicit family and community engagement. I'm a community member, public school advocate for many years, and this board has just really brought so much to the wider view to inform the public at large. And so I think our work is very much grounded in what schools are doing and how schools can be partners with parents and family members. So we want to broaden that understanding. That's all I can say, but thank you everyone for participating. Aloha.
Thank you, Ernestine. Kei Fukuda is our treasurer and was with us a little earlier, but had to run to another engagement. Kay is a graduate of Waipahu High School. Her son is a public school graduate, and her 2 granddaughters attended public schools as well. Kay is with the University of Hawaii and works with schools and community organizations along the Waianae Coast, supporting the implementation of place-based teaching and learning curriculum. Place-based curriculum connects students to their community in meaningful ways, often engaging students through the relevance to and impact on community. Ms. Lois Yamauchi, Dr. Lois Yamauchi is our past president and is unable to be with us this morning. Lois is a graduate of Kalani High School and received her bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees from the University of Hawaii. As a parent of 2 public school graduates, she is passionate about public education and is a founding member of PPS Hawaii. Lois is a professor of education in the Department of Educational Psychology at the University of Hawaii and specializes in cultural influences on learning and instruction. Mary is also with us here today. She's been quiet throughout this morning, but we'd love to hear from her. Mary.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank all of you for joining us today at our annual meeting. I'm Mary Weir. I've been a volunteer and a strong advocate for public schools for 30 plus years as a parent and now as a grandparent of a 5th grader at Monowili Elementary. I'm a founding member of PPS Hawaii and am presently serving as one of the 2 vice presidents on the board. I'm still involved in schools, very much involved in schools, because I strongly believe that all children, regardless of their family circumstances or neighborhood, deserve an equal opportunity for a quality education. We hope to engage all of you in future meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Good to have you here. Well, it's been quite a morning. We hope that this was time well spent for you, that you received helpful and relevant information, and that you feel empowered, rejuvenated, and inspired to help us support public education in Hawaii. Thank you to Interim Superintendent Keith Hayashi for joining us today and engaging with us and our members. Misa and Rojelle, thank you for your leadership and for taking on such an important issue for Hawaii's youth. Stay the course and let's continue to work together to end the youth vaping epidemic. Today's meeting would not be happening if it weren't for our behind the scenes powerhouse, Chelsea Molina. I cannot say enough great things about her. She is our social media expert, transition night coordinator, technical coordinator, and she does just about everything to keep us up and running. Thank you, Chelsea, for ensuring that this meeting was a success. And we want to thank each and every one of you for being here, for prioritizing your child's educational experience, for being involved in public education, and for supporting our organization and mission. I hope you feel empowered to be your child's best advocate, to work alongside their teachers and school administrators. I'd like to encourage you to remain positive and vigilant in your child's education and stay in touch with us. Join us for our meetings, talk story sessions, and other events and activities. To the educators who joined us today, thank you for your hard work, perseverance, and commitment to ensuring that our children are provided with quality experiences in a safe and nurturing environment. Please follow or like us on our social media pages and visit our website for more information, upcoming events, and resources. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at info@ppshi.org. Lastly, please stick around and join us for our talk story session. We will take a short 5-minute bio break to stretch, use the restroom, or get something to eat and drink. If you are not able to join us, thanks again and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Hello. I think we just have a few of us board members. Is anyone else on? So I think we have just board members, and can you hear me, folks? Yes, good. And I think we have one guest as well, and I don't know the name. I see just a phone number. Can you let us know who you are? 808-358-9381. Oh, good. And now we have, welcome, Marlene Kirkland. We only have a few people on, and I think we probably will not want to stay on too long. So I'd love to ask you, Marlene, and I'm not sure the name of the other person who's here now. I'd love to ask you to share with us your hopes and concerns for schools and for kids and for families. And I was thinking it'd be nice to think about, how was it before COVID? And how was it last year? And how is it now? What's the difference? And what do we expect and hope for the future? Marlene, could you share with us your thoughts on any or all of that? Stacy? Chelsea, do you know if they're able to unmute at this point to speak? Whoops.
They're all able to unmute.
Okay. Well, why don't we, at any point when any of you would like to share, why don't you? In the meantime, maybe we can go to you, Heather. What are your thoughts?
Sure. So thanks, Deborah, and thanks for facilitating the talk story for a few moments. I asked to unmute for both our phone caller and Marlene as well. So they would have to hit the unmute button if I ask. So anyway, I will share a little bit about what it looked like for me prior to COVID, how last year went, and how it's going now. So prior to COVID, my kiddos were, I had a pre-K child and a second grader. And my daughter was going to Hickam, and my son was at Mauna Loa preschool, and he was really thriving there. I've actually stayed connected with his preschool teacher. We became friends after he graduated, and he had a really great experience there. And then COVID happened. That was real tough for both of our kids because as military family, we're kind of isolated geographically from our support system with family. And then I'm in grad school. So working, as an intern and grad school work on top of that site work. And then my kiddos, being home for distance learning, it was really tough. It was really tough. And then the amount of hours in front of the screen was quite difficult with them and not having that support. So that was real tough. And then the transition back to in-person has been just a breath of fresh air for us, honestly, for them to be able to see other kids. The mask wearing was no problem. It's like if you introduce kids to it early, then they just don't know anything different. So for them, having now a fourth grader and a first grader, it's kind of all they've known, at least for my first grader. So yeah, it's going pretty well now, and it feels like some semblance of normalcy and stability for them. So we're really grateful. Um, yeah, that's all I got. So thanks.
Do you have any thoughts on, given COVID, given what happened, given what you lived through, given what the district lived through, do you have any thoughts about what will be different or what you hope will be different in the future?
Yeah, I think that you've highlighted it a number of times in your work, Deborah, and we've talked about it a number of times in today's annual meeting with Interim Sup Hayashi. So, like taking the digital options that have made learning work for diverse families and applying that. So not just, completely cutting out, okay, we're done distance learning, now we're back to in person. It doesn't need to be that black and white. We can really take and leverage the parts of distance learning that worked, especially I'm thinking for families that kids have an IEP, or if families who have kids who are differently abled, being able to access learning in a way that works better for their family structure. So maybe one parent's at home with a child part of the time, whatever that looks like. So I hope that's what we take away from it. Yeah. And so
More choices, more variety, more personal.
yeah, just really, meeting the family's needs. So if the, family, if it's better for family to have a student home part of the day or something like that, if that could be worked out, on a case-by-case basis to increase accessibility to education without so much strain on parents.
One of the things that I think is in the middle of happening with our schools that's not totally about teaching and learning and the kids learning is the systems. And I've just been experiencing this because of becoming a foster parent and needing to get kids registered and then transferred. There's a tremendous amount of paperwork bureaucracy that all has to be signed in a certain order. So by hand couriering it, I got the transfer done in about 7 days, but it usually takes like a month because you have to have the releasing school sign, then you have to have social worker, then you have to have the receiving school, then you have to take it back. Then there are like 14 different forms. But when I went on a tour at the receiving high school, the counselor was able to access from her telephone the records of people coming in. So we're at a point of change where all of this is by paper and requiring a lot more time and wasting time and making us not able to meet kids and family needs as quickly. But then we are starting to have this digital capability to manage things. And my hope is that this means we can meet needs faster and that we can get parental views sooner. And, I don't think we were able to talk about it as much as we might have wanted to in the meeting, but we have had a lot of parents who feel like they didn't know what was going on. And so I think this digital thing may be, even aside from teaching and learning, something that allows communication and systems and movements, so it doesn't waste our time and we really get the conversation going and can see how many people think this, how many people think that, is this person getting their needs met? Is that anything that the rest of you are thinking about? Wendy, do you have any thoughts on these topics, the general topic of hopes and concerns, or before COVID, last year, now, and the
I
future?
do. Thank you, Deborah. And just to kind of piggyback on your mention about communication, through the talk stories and just in different conversations with parents, communication was a common theme. And I think that was the source of a lot of confusion and frustration. I think basically if parents were kept informed, I think that probably would have eased a lot of anxiety. And not only that, but to engage in meaningful conversations with the different stakeholders. Moving forward for the department, I would really like to see them engage and meaningful conversations with the different stakeholders. You know, communication is important, yes, for us parents to receive that information and updates, but it's also very important that we are able to share our concern, not only concerns, but best practices, you know, too. You know, it's not always just bad things. And so as I look and I think about what I expect or what I'd like to see in the future, like you and Heather mentioned, let's maximize our digital capabilities and resources. You know, let's move ahead, you know, and not take a step backward again. I think to give families options. So we do have, the department has charter schools, Myron B. Thompson, Hawaii Technology Academy, that are hybrid schools, right? They're charter schools, but students go into the school campus maybe 2 or 3 days a week. And then the other days of the week, they're at home doing, you know, virtual learning. And it works. I mean, they've been around for many, many years, running successful programs. And, you know, so, and right now we know that there is a complex on our island that created the Pineapple Academy. And it's very similar to that, you know, so I would like the department to see what else is out there and to really maximize our resources and, you know, the federal funding, right, that came down. I would really like to see that money well spent.
One of the things that in late August, the district was making decisions about what new platform to use for teaching and learning. And we haven't heard yet, it hasn't been released what that is. And so one of the things I'd like to do to follow up on the openness of Superintendent Hayashi is to ask for details on that so that we can share that with other families and they can see what's coming to support those different opportunities. One of the things that I've heard from students now, having more contact with students who went through this all virtual period, was they started to like it in the beginning, and then they got tired. And part of that was the lack of engagement. And part of that is the lack of teacher professional development in how to use distance learning, what can be done that's different than in the class. So we did have a couple questions about what is the accountability, what is the training? And those questions didn't quite make it to the superintendent yet. But I think that, you know, we want to know what are the systems and what's the new training for teachers and for principals and complex area superintendents to use these new skills. And maybe we can be a trading place of information, that we get it and we just distribute it and bring in more questions from families about this. Mary, what about you? You've had your granddaughter going through this. What's your thinking about what's been going on? How did it affect her?
She missed her friends. You know, it was so tough. Their family decided to homeschool, which is kind of goes against all of our feelings about homeschooling, because we prefer in school, in public school, feeling that that's better, and that the family agreed, but for them at this time, it was better. And
what was better about homeschooling, Mary? That's so interesting.
It worked. Well, it only worked because they had time to actually work with our granddaughter, and there was only one child involved in it. So it was very fortunate that way. So it was a time issue. And they were able to cover the curriculum at home, you know, and do it, you know, just by working on that, but then having extra time for her to explore other things, you know, her music and other dance and everything else, just that she did on her own. But she missed the friends because she was not around the friends.
Is she back in the school now?
Yes, full time, and it has been tremendous. It's, you know, her attitude, she's happy, she's thrilled with learning, education. So it's working for her, and it's working for her classmates too. It seems to be going well at the school. So yeah, it's not as good as it could be, but everybody's looking forward for the younger kids getting vaccinated, which will really help us return to normal. So thank you.
Ernestine, are you hearing from any of the many people you've trained in the schools and administrators and others you've worked with over the years? What are you getting from your circles?
I wish I could say I was getting something, but not very much. I think folks have been very, very swamped and busy with just their trying to cope. And I thought Interim Superintendent Hayashi did a really great job of, directly speaking to the challenges that administrators and teachers have been facing with this pandemic. I'm actually not as hopeful that the system itself will change dramatically. I mean, it's a huge system that doesn't morph very easily. So I think one of the key questions that we need to follow up on will be about the extent to which there's consistency across the different schools and school systems. The different districts are doing things differently, I suspect, and that's something we need to keep track of. So just some thoughts there.
Chelsea, can you share with us, how has it been for your son?
No, because my neighbor is using a chainsaw right now.
Oh.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Deborah, I was just gonna say, thanks for facilitating this part, and like you keep bringing us back to leveraging the digital parts of distance learning, and I'm just wondering, like practically, what might that look like? I'm thinking, like, I am a lay person, right? I'm a parent, and so I don't know the ins and outs of what it looks like on the admin or like the communications end. But I'm thinking, like, if a kid is home from school for whatever reason, maybe that kid has an IEP going on and they need some extra support or assistance. And if they are home with a parent, is there a world where they might be able to like stream in or something to a classroom that wouldn't be overly taxing on the educator, so that that kid could get access to the classroom?
No, I think that's very possible, Heather, but a lot of educators that I've heard from have said that they really want to either teach online or face-to-face, that doing the two at once is very difficult. And I've read there's professional development trying to teach them how to do it. But one of the issues we have is that our teachers are different. There's a diversity of teachers. And if we have good human resource management, which is more possible if we use more systems to really manage the information about all of our staff, teachers and support staff, we can find out who are the people who should be teaching online and could benefit from teaching online, and who are the people who are best to be doing it face-to-face. And what are the electronic things that face-to-face teachers can use that support what they do face-to-face? So I think there's more professional development needed across the board. But I think if we use systems to really support good human resources and training, that we can let teachers do what they do best and let that communicate. So I think that we ultimately, I imagine that we will have our Hawaii curriculum, one basic set of it in a learning management system. So if a student is going to be absent for 2 days, has something going on, the student could potentially log into that system, even if their teacher is only teaching face-to-face, that they could get those lessons through an electronic mode. And we should have a learning management system which is not just asynchronous content, but is actually mediated by great, talented, live, local teachers. And that means that every student could still be getting human attention in addition to accessing the media, the assessments, the activities, and so forth. So I'm hoping that the new purchases that the district is making because of all this funding will get us a great system that really, my hope is that it really supports the use of our own local teachers to build content and to deliver content so that our students aren't just getting something that's off the shelf from some other person from some other place. But I think that one of the things too, when you ask, what does it look like, is, for example, the bureaucratic thing I'm going through right now. I see how much 3-part forms and how many multi-page forms that are redundant are going on right now to manage our students. And I'm finding out students have fallen through the cracks, that the attendance rates are not being communicated to the responsible party. And part of this is because it's happening part on paper, part in an infinite campus, part here, part there. And so I think we've got a significant challenge ahead of us to move to an efficient, modern system where we no longer have paper. You know, this is done electronically and people can access it from their smartphones, both the staff people and the parents, or their computers, and that we can have information up to date rather than being mailed from place to place. And all of that should be possible in the next couple of years. Do we have any thoughts from we right now have just one person other than board members on the call with us. Any thoughts to share with us by text chat or verbally? Okay, well, are there any other comments from all of you before we log off? All right, well, thanks to everybody for all your work today and to folks for joining us, and especially to Chelsea for managing all the technology during this. It's just great. Okay, we will see you later.
Aloha. Thank you, everyone.
Aloha.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy the weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.